Project Resolve is actually kind of terrifying. Now, I am all for the quality of life changes, the fixes, the stability, etc., etc. However, their idea of balancing isn't exactly balanced. It's a bit weird. Now, these are going to be live recordings. There's going to be probably quite a few of them as I go over this mess. And admittedly, these are just going to be kind of guesses, simply just because we do not have all the information yet. I've been checking to see if we have the patch notes up and running. We have like minimal information on what is actually happening. I mean, they showed how many cards they have and the size of their cards, etc., etc. But a lot of it is actually genuinely terrifying. Don't get me wrong, we absolutely do need a shake-up on the meta, but the way they're going about it is, quite frankly, stupid. Like, there's no other word for it at this point. And again, this is only in regards to the information they've given us during the Project Resolve live stream. So let's just have a listen to what they actually said.
Do you want to read all of them?
No. I mean, that was your idea, right? To have everything just in case. Let's just talk about what the general buff balance pass was aimed at.
Yeah, so the idea is to, and I mean, that's in general what we want to do is balancing anyway, but it's like, let's look at everything that is underperforming. Let's take, like, we don't want to nerf the stuff that is powerful, because if it's, it's powerful, it's fun and people like it. So we want to, limit as much as possible, like taking that fun away. But instead, let's look at everything else and try to make everything else just as fun and interesting.
Already, this logic is kind of weird. Because when it comes to what is actually truly OP and really powerful in this game, there's like 3 or 4 items. There's like 3 or 4 offenders, which honestly, you could just decrease by 20%. That brings them all in line with everything else. And the largest culprits of these are going to be Ouroboros, Regulus, Nemesis, and I don't know, there's like one other potentially, I'm not too sure. However, when it comes to balancing, what I don't think they actually realise is, because I'm guaranteed they're all going to go for damage, a lot of the weapons are actually very viable on the DPS scale, they're just not viable on the handling scale. So a lot of the weapons don't actually need a buff to damage, they need a buff to their handling to actually make them usable. You can give them all the damage in the world. If after 2 shots I'm shooting pigeons, it's still a shit gun.
So it's really not about giving you more power, it's giving you more options. And so we looked at every weapon in every category, or every weapon family, and just looked at, okay, what kind of quick buff can we make to that weapon to actually give it more identity and also bringing it up closer to the power level of the best performing and the most popular weapons. So that's why this is a long list, because it's again, it goes through every single weapon, and we're not going to go through all of them, but it's like, it's in terms of weapon damage, in max size, in RPM, in all kind of changes depending on weapon, depending on which one it is. There are changes in here that are going to impact all of them.
Assault rifles, LMGs, submachine guns, rifles, marksman rifles, pretty much everything. And I think the most important part is also that exotic weapons, third attribute, will now be reconfigurable.
Exotic weapons with the third attribute being reconfigurable is both a good thing and a bad thing. This can potentially shake up a few of the metas. It actually can potentially put Chatterbox in line to compete with Ouroboros. Like, that's how powerful it can potentially be. But at the same time, damage to targets that have cover on a Regulus, come on. Like, that's just... Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we've done more with the last exotics, and it was fairly popular. So yes, with Project Resolve, you're going to be able to recalibrate the third attribute of every exotic weapon in the game, which is cool. On the other hand, we know that it means that a lot of you are just going to be, going damage to targets out of cover. because that's probably the best stat out there. This is something we have in mind, and this is something we're going to look at as well in terms of the value of those attributes and making sure that the other options are also interesting. It's not listed in here because I don't know yet if we will manage to make it for Project Resolve, but just want you to be aware that we know what the consequence of that change will be. But still, let's see how creative people can get with being allowed to change the third attribute of an exotic weapon.
So by the sounds of it, yes, we're going to be able to re-roll the third attribute on a lot of the weapons. However, they're also going to be buffing a lot of those attribute rolls. Now, this could be interesting for two reasons. Depending on the situation, you could literally have more viable options than just Detox. For example, if you are running Strikers, Detox, don't get me wrong, very powerful, but if you're running something like Strikers or even Heartbreaker, depending on the role, the actual value, something like Rate of Fire, if it's at least 10% or more, or equal to Detox, it could also be more beneficial. These will give you the same amount of DPS, because you're getting a 10% increase in your Rate of Fire or a 10% increase in your overall output. That being said, Rate of Fire is non-conditional. It will do 10% more DPS against anything and everything, whether they're in cover or out of cover, unlike Detox. The flip side to this as well is it's going to decrease your overall magazine damage, because Detox is going to increase your bullet damage by 10%, therefore increasing your overall DPS by 10%, whereas Rate of Fire is just going to be increasing how fast you shoot by 10%. So it's going to give you a 10% increase in just DPS, nothing to do with actual damage. So there's swings and roundabouts, ups and downs.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And another thing that I think important to mention here, that since intention was not to overbuff some exotic and named weapons, and certain buffs from the weapons that these named and exotics are based on may not carry over. So that's why we're gonna publish the whole list for you to look through. It's not necessarily gonna mention all the named and exotic weapons too, but just to make sure that we are not making some weapons overpowerful, but changing the base weapon and then applying that to the named and exotic.
Ouroboros.
Well.
Yeah.
I mean, is there? If you want to read,
I was trying to see which ones stand out, but I'm just going to give you some random ones, right? But like F2000 replica, and the shield splinterer in the process, are gonna get plus 50 RPM, plus 10 max size. That's one example.
This change actually puts it above FAMAS. At base, we would have to look to see what happens on build variety with the missing mod.
Military P416 and custom P416, Glory Days Eagle Bearer, plus 50 RPM. In LMGs, Iron Lung, actually.
With Eagle Bearer specifically, if we can change the attribute to Detox and add another 50 RPM, putting it to, I believe, 800, this puts it as the highest burst AR in the game. Something to be said about the accuracy and stability. How that will actually overperform overall, not too sure, but this will put it as the highest DPS AR.
Getting a plus 10% weapon damage.
Iron Lung. This is what I mean. Like, this is where it gets stupid. So far, arguably good/bad changes, but it could go either way. Iron Lung, 10% increase in weapon damage. Iron Lung is the highest DPS LMG in the game by 21%. It beats every other LMG in the game by 21%. And they're now just going to buff it even more? Really? If you wanted to buff that, change the magazine size from 85 to 100. That's all you needed to do.
Stunner LMG, Quiet Roar, Blue Screen, plus 20% weapon damage.
That makes no difference whatsoever, because the big problem with LMGs is the suppress mechanic. LMGs are, in a weird way, kind of balanced. They do very high shot-for-shot damage, typically, along with the fact of contractor's gloves. Their problem is the suppress mechanic. So you changing all of this with LMGs kind of means nothing, because suppressed.
What else do we have in here? submachine guns, the M1928 Tommy gun, the Slayer, ground grade plus 10% weapon damage.
Again, that means nothing. Like, those SMGs have 0 attachments. So increasing them by 10% weapon damage is literally going to do nothing. It's kind of brain dead.
What else do we have?
Threat Addict plus 15.
Yep.
Command.
The SVDs essentially getting plus 15. This is all well and good. However, they still don't have the power to one-shot with use of Headhunter. So unless they actually have the power to one-shot something, increasing their actual overall damage is going to do nothing. What they need is to become viable on a DPS build, which can only be done through their handling. Again, shoot like 2 shots and you're shooting pigeons. Like, great, you've upped their damage, but is it usable? Probably not. They might be increasing handling. Again, I'm just going off the information they've given here.
No.
What else? MDR battle rifle, MDR battle rifle replica, plus 10% weapon damage, plus 20 RPM. In MMR also. The
rifles, so they're going to be touching rifles. Again, a lot of the rifles, hold on, we can actually show this. IKEA rifle burst, right? M1A CQB, SOCOM M1A, UCS 45. Third highest DPS. Why does no one use it? It's impossible to actually consistently hit the friggin' White House. That's because of how bad its handling is. In terms of DPS and damage-wise, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't need a damage buff. I mean, you can give it one. It needs a handling buff. ACRSS, same thing. In terms of DPS, it's higher than our golden boy, classic M1A here. Lightweight M4, Lavoa, ACRSS, and USC 45. These are, in terms of DPS, if you want to go for a DPS style rifle build, these are very, very powerful. It's their handling that is shit.
Covert SRS, SRS A1, SRS A1 replica, pinprick mantis plus 30% weapon damage. Yeah.
A lot of people I've already seen are quite excited for the Mantis buff, 30% weapon damage. This will kind of put it on par with Nemesis. Remains to be seen how good this is. But from what they've just said and shown, this is a very brain-dead way of balancing the game. Very brain-dead.
There's a lot, and again, some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger. So again, all of that will be on the PTS, and the full list will be published as well. So you can go through that, make your own mind, try them on the PTS, see if we went overboard with some of them. Maybe we'll see. That's what the PTS is for. But again, it's what taking the time to actually focus on improvements gives us. It's really doing a general pass on everything to really try to bring everything up.
And weapons are not the only thing that...
So yeah, this is kind of stupid. I mean, again, I don't know everything they've got in here. They might be addressing weapon handling. They might not be. I do not know. But a lot of the weapons don't actually need damage or DPS increases. They just need their handling sorted. A lot of them just need their handling sorted. So buffing or increasing like RPM or damage or etc. isn't going to actually really do a lot. It's kind of a false positive. Hey, look, this weapon now does more DPS. Yeah, but can you use it? No. You've wasted your time buffing a weapon and you've wasted my time for trying to fucking use it. Yeah. Have fun, good luck, don't die. Bad for the health.